It's been almost 25 years since RuneScape first trickled down our modems to captivate a generation of PC gamers. Now, Jagex, the studio behind this beloved MMO, are back with an open-world survival game set in the same universe, RuneScape Dragonwilds. We recently caught up with their senior community manager, Jake Blunt, at GDC to discuss Dragonwilds and RuneScape's enduring popularity.
So Jake, tell me about the decision to transition, this next generation of RuneScape into the survival game.
I think it's something that Jagex has always wanted to do, is we want to make sure that RuneScape is as broadly available as possible, and this is something that we've always had an appetite to do. RuneScape's Iron Man mode is essentially a self-sufficient survival game in and of itself, where players are tasked with making everything themselves, starting from scratch. You're entirely reliant on your own survival. So it's always been something that we've kind of been tangentially interested in. And so when the idea was brought up and we kind of came forward with this idea of let's make a survival game, we really saw the connection there between survival and RuneScape. And so this is just a matter of we found the right moment, we found the right team, we found the right time. And so now we're just throwing everything we have at it. And it's been a long time coming, but it's very, very satisfying to see the team bring this to life. It's such a cool experience.
Yeah, and certainly you're tapping into an established genre at this point. This style that I think games like Valheim have really solidified in the last few years. It's a bit of a cozy genre in some ways, the enjoyment of kind of building your camps and, cooking with your friends and whatnot. So like what sort of spin in particular do you think this game puts on that genre?
I think that it kind of embraces a lot of those values that other games have really put forward. Obviously, we love Valheim. We love lots of those cozy survival crafting moments. We have to pay homage to those. But I think the thing that makes us really stand out is, apart from the fact that it's a RuneScape game, fundamentally at its core, is that we have our skill spell system. Our survival magic really doesn't turn the system on its head per se, but it really fundamentally challenges how you experience a survival game. Being able to conjure a spectral axe that goes through a row of trees in one swing, being able to explode fallen trees into immediately cut planks or shatter rocks with the snap of your fingers. Things like that make it so much easier to streamline that survival process as you become more powerful. And it lets you get on with the good stuff, like building a really cozy cottage and filling it with awesome furniture, or gearing up to fight an awesome dragon and exploring dungeons and just in soaking up that atmosphere and environment with your friends. So it removes a lot of those friction points that other games you may sometimes feel like, oh, I'm kind of getting bored of chopping trees now. With us, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So we're just adding something new and a fresh spin on that genre.
So certainly your direction here is to deliver something that's cooperative, a little more intimate. It's not massively multiplayer. But you talked to me a little bit about, exploring the possibility of PvP or what that might look like in your early testing of the game. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so some of the team put together a very experimental PvP build during a game jam, and we initially broached the subject with players and we said, hey, would you be interested in testing this? It's going to be very jank, full disclosure. And the players said, you know what? We want in. We'll give it a go anyway. We'll try it and see how it comes out. And they got hands-on with it, and it is jank, I must stress. But players said, hey, this is kind of fun. And so it is a toggleable option in our alpha tester builds, and players have been getting to try it out. And I think that really embodies a lot of what we've always set out to do with the alpha testing, and how our whole approach to this project is just putting things in front of players, getting them into the decisions early and saying, this is what we're messing around with. What do you think? Is this a cool idea? And player feedback has been so important in my role as the community manager, in delivering that feedback to the teams and saying, hey, players are liking this, even though it's jank. PvP is an example of, if in the future players turn around and say, actually, we kind of would love to have dedicated PvP servers in the future or whatever, then we have those options there. And it's about listening to those players and giving them the ideas early, letting us have those conversations and see where it takes us.
So you talked to me a little bit about the different types of survival game players, and you're trying to cater to like those different pillars, those different subgroups. How would you identify them, and how exactly is the game sort of catering to them?
So we initially looked at our player demographics based on their familiarity with survival games and with RuneScape games. Those are obviously the two key beats in making a RuneScape survival game. But even further in than that, we've looked at things like players who primarily enjoy the more casual, as you mentioned, cozy base building experiences. And then also looking at things like, hey, what if you just want combat? What if you only want to hunt monsters and fight things? And we're exploring how we can make sure that with every content release cadence that we're putting out, and for example, things like quarterly release schedules, if we're looking at how we're structuring, putting out updates, there's a definite conversation internally. The team internally is saying, okay, how do we make sure we're hitting each of these different demographics? Is there a base building update? Is there a monster update? Is there a gear update for people who like crafting? Are we adding things to the skills for the skillers? And making sure that we're developing and deepening those systems for each unique demographic as we go, to make sure that people are feeling like they aren't being left in the dark for months waiting for an update that kind of appeals to each demographic and player group. So we're trying to appeal to every unique group and speak to their tastes without leaving any specific group high and dry waiting for updates for years on end. So we're trying to hit a nice balance.
So certainly RuneScape has one of the longest histories in maybe all of games. It's up there. It's defying age. What do you attribute its longevity to exactly? Like what is the nature of its appeal for this many decades?
I think RuneScape is a very unique franchise in that it's a balance of very unique RuneScape-y humor. It's very lighthearted, it's very humorous, but it also has these incredible storylines and these incredible quests and narrative moments that some of our most devoted players, we recently spoke to them at RuneFest, and players all remember their favorite quests. They talk about those stories, they talk about those moments. But also, it's a community, and it's always been a community, and we've always been very, very focused on working with players. I am fully leaning into us talking to players, and that is going to be at the core of Dragonwilds' DNA, is talk to players, share things with them, share those experiences, and make sure that we're embodying and living up to that RuneScape name, because it's how we've got to where we are today, is through Jagex doing right by the players and sticking to what makes RuneScape RuneScape. And if we can do that, I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic time.
And finally, how are players going to see those kind of iconic elements of RuneScape translated, that sense of humor, for example, that you mentioned, into an entirely different genre?
It's been a challenge, but our narrative designer, Mod Raven, has done such an awesome job in injecting a decade plus of his experience working on RuneScape into Dragonwilds, making sure that the characters we have are iconic RuneScape characters, and that the narrative we have deepens and expands on existing RuneScape lore, so that we're faithful to the universe of RuneScape, but we're adding more depth and new ideas and new storylines into it to make sure that we're faithful to that RuneScape lineage and that RuneScape story. We've got iconic NPCs from the RuneScape world who are coming on this journey with you. We are able to translate amazing RuneScape animals, flora, fauna, and put a new, fresh spin on them, redesigning them in Unreal Engine 5. And being able to bring those characters to life in a new way feels so cool. I've never seen a party hat look that high quality, and it feels so good to see it. And our alpha players have loved seeing it as well. They've loved seeing those characters brought to life in an entirely new way. And I'm so excited for players to see some of their favorite RuneScape NPCs and monsters in an entirely new light. So I'm thrilled to get players' hands on with this very soon.
Right. I mean, certainly one of the appeals there is just seeing things that you may have known for decades brought into higher definition, like much higher definition.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's something that is, it's an appeal point that I think personally that we have focused on less, because I think it's something that obviously we're a very different game from RuneScape and old school RuneScape. They're MMORPGs, but I think it is amazing to see that we are translating these core elements into a completely new visual language and translating them into Unreal Engine, and players seeing buildings that look eerily familiar and NPCs that they've known for decades in an entirely new light. It's just so awesome. And as we're progressing this game and as we're beginning to develop the foundations for where we're going next, we're always tying it back to, okay, what does RuneScape have? What does Old School have? And how do we remain faithful to that visual language that connects us all together? What makes us RuneScape? And it's tough. I'm one of the few members of the team who has worked on a RuneScape game before. So sometimes I have to be a bit mean in the room and say, actually, no, I definitely don't think we should do that because it doesn't look RuneScapey enough. And so sometimes I have to be a bit mean. But it's important for us as a project to make sure that we're faithful to that RuneScape identity, because I don't want people to think that we're RuneScape in name only, because we are absolutely not. It's been at the core of everything we've done. And so I hope that the moment players see this, they're going to go, that's RuneScape. So fingers crossed.
Thanks so much for talking with us.
No, thank you. It's been great. Thanks so much.